This episode of Rick and Rick Rule the World is brought to you by Taskin, the first name in ultra stylish, premium quality travel gear, like the exquisitely designed Taskin One expandable backpack. With 9 practical variations, the Taskin One is always the right size for wherever life takes you next. Save 30% on your next purchase when you use the promo code R&R Take 30. That's R&R Take 30 at TaskinSF.com. Next up on an all-new Rick and Rick.
One Suicide Squad snuffs out another, flatlining the summer box office.
And it all starts right here, right now.
On the one show where everybody walks around with Big Rick energy.
And everyone rules the world.
Hey, welcome one and all to an all-new episode of Rick and Rick Rule the World, the show that's chock full of news and views from the worlds of marketing, media, tech, and pop culture. I'm Rick Matheson, and I am joined, as always, by my good friend, Gina Lola Brigida. I mean, Rick Wooten. How you doing, Rick?
I'm good.
So kicking off Radar this week, Rick. So you saw Suicide Squad. I saw Suicide Squad. What'd you think?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I heard a lot of hype coming out around this, both good and bad, by the way. I mean, I think a couple of media outlets, I think Mashable was one of them, kind of slammed on it a little bit, just basically saying that it failed in the box office. But I'll tell you, everybody I know streamed it on HBO Max, and so far I haven't had anybody say no, they didn't like it. So I finally broke down last week and I watched it. Unfortunately, I watched it in segments, like a half hour at a time. I was just wherever I could steal a half hour. I watched it over the course of 3 or 4 days, and I enjoyed it, but I felt like I missed a lot. So I went back and I watched it again. I started last night and finished it just before the show. And man, I really enjoyed it.
Just to sort of set the stage, we are talking about The Suicide Squad, some kind of, I don't know, reboot to the movie Suicide Squad from a couple years back. It's from director James Gunn. He directed, I think, both of the Guardians of the Galaxy. So this is a DC property starring Viola Davis as a Black Ops leader named Amanda Waller, Margot Robbie as, of course, Harley Quinn, John Cena as a psycho-nationalist peacemaker, Joel Kinnaman as military leader Rick Flag, well, Sylvester Stallone as the voice of an amazing rendition of King Shark, and many more. They are Task Force X. They're the secret team of supervillain prisoners from Belle Reve Prison sent in to do covert operations in exchange for 10 years off of their sentences. The catch is, I guess if they fail, but for sure if they bail, Amanda Waller will explode the bombs injected at the base of their skulls, thus the Suicide Squad moniker. I thought this was fun. I barely remembered the original. There are some similarities because I seem to remember the first one involved something destroying a big city, but this one's different because it's Starro the Conqueror. So anybody who is a DC Comics fan knows that in current mythology, Darkseid was the impetus for the creation of the Justice League of America. Well, in the first appearance of the Justice League, the impetus for the creation of the team was Starro the Conqueror, which is a giant starfish. This is a crazy movie.
To me, it seemed like kind of an interesting intersection of, something like, the original, kind of Suicide Squad, but also to me, it felt like it was really channeling Deadpool from the Marvel universe. So some of that comedy, some of that, kind of characters breaking out and having hilarious conversations. And so I felt like it took a couple elements from a bunch of different things and brought it together in a way that just worked. And like you said, the King Shark, he was hilarious. I mean, there were so many scenes that he ended up winning over just by being in the frame. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, I was pretty impressed with it.
I literally thought it was Vin Diesel channeling Sly Stallone doing the voice of King Shark, but it was in fact Sly Stallone, and his delivery's awesome, but how they, I don't know, the motion capture, whatever, this is the best rendition of King Shark that I have seen. I was skeptical they'd be able to do it well. The Flash TV show has had King Shark on it a couple times, and it was decent, for TV, but nothing you knew you were looking at, hey, it's the best they can do it. This one was really, really good.
Yeah.
The way that he fit into all the
Yeah.
scenes. The camera is very kinetic in the movie. There's a
Yeah.
lot of comedic elements. And for me, it reminded me at first, which is okay, but I consciously thought about it. It seemed like they were channeling The Boys from Amazon Prime
Oh, yeah.
in the beginning of it. So picks up with the Suicide Squad going in on a secret ops in Corto Maltese, I think is the name of the island, which is very big in DC Comics. And as we learn, the characters are after a old Nazi outpost where they captured Starro, which is this giant starfish. He looks ridiculous, but cool. He's technically not a starfish. He's an alien that just happens to look like what we associate with a starfish, with this giant eye and the ability to shoot out extensions of itself, smaller starfish that land on people's faces and essentially kill the people and take over their minds. I think all the people were dead right after they were liberated from the starfish. I think they were
Yeah.
all dead.
Yeah. Yeah. However, the little starfish take over, they end up killing the host.
Yeah.
So they're dead bodies that are being controlled by the starfish.
Yeah. And so these are not little other starfish. It is all Starro. Now, I don't know what happens if they normally would fly back into Starro or not. It's kind of gross the way they came out of the folds, but tremendous mental power. He can take over minds and he is very tough to beat. And in fact, like I mentioned, in the original comics, it took the formation of the Justice League to stop him before. He is considered one of the biggest villains. So that by itself was fun to see here. And then King Shark, the effects were great there. One thing that somebody pointed out is he was Superman level invulnerable into this. So people were wondering, Amanda Waller gets the bomb to the base of his skull. How did they pierce his skin? And then I thought, well, maybe they didn't. Maybe they just told him it's there because he's so dumb.
It's true. It's true. Actually, you know what? There's the scene towards the end where they, they're all about to be, blown up, and so she's got a control panel, and I can't remember if I saw him on that control panel or not.
Yeah, I don't know. And we should mention for listeners too, I mean, as you would imagine, King Shark, this is a half man, half great white shark. He's essentially a demigod, right? The son of the shark god or something.
Yeah.
I don't believe he's alien. I think he is a metahuman.
That's exactly what they said. I thought that was kind of weird.
And so he is very large, very heavy set, super powerful, but he's got, two legs and hands and, arms, but a shark face and head. And how he keeps his balance, I have no idea. He's kind of like a squatter Hulk.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I thought that for a moment. I wondered if he was the analogy of, the DC version of the Hulk or not, but I wasn't sure how big of a character he was in the DC universe.
Yeah, he's become larger in the last couple of years, probably the last, I don't know, half dozen years. I mentioned to you that I guess in the mythology now, John Constantine, the superhero with the magical powers, he apparently went out with Kingfish. They were an item for a while. And so that's been used for comic relief in a lot of the animated shows. And people are like, wait, what? You were with him?
That's awesome.
So he's an interesting character. Now, what I thought was the character only said shark, kind of like Hodor on Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But here he did have some limited, it was num for eating something, another human or something. And then friend.
Yeah.
He had a limited vocabulary, but much larger than I understood the character to be.
True. And in the beginning of the show, he pointed at his hand and said hand. So he actually had quite a vocabulary.
Yeah, much more than I thought. I don't know that he's the equivalent of the Hulk. There's a character that always struck me as the version of the Hulk for DC is a character called Solomon Grundy. He was a character created, I don't want to say 1940, and he essentially is the Hulk, but he's undead, extremely powerful.
Interesting.
Is not a living thing. And it creates interesting storylines because, he has to be stopped, but you feel for the guy because he can't remember if it's a curse or something, but he wants to be gone and he can't. And so he's probably about I don't know if he's as strong as the Hulk, but he's very much like that character.
So as I was going through the show, they had, Harley Quinn, they had Bloodsport, Peacemaker, whatever it was, something Rat 2, they had King Shark. Now, were these major players in the DC universe, or are they kind of pulling out lesser known characters to bring into this?
A little bit of both. So obviously Harlequin is some of the big players, but there were several characters that I believe were created just for this. Usually the expendable, the ones that got killed. A couple of that I looked up
Right.
afterwards that I was unfamiliar with. I thought it was brilliant, and it really was a character was the Mongol. So the character I'm familiar with is called Mongol. Must be her dad, but he's an alien enemy of Superman. But apparently this Mongol is in the comics. I'm trying to think. The Weasel guy I think was unique to this. That was James Gunn's brother, I think,
Mhm.
playing during the motion capture for that. Ratcatcher, I believe, is in the comics, but I think in this movie was Ratcatcher 2. At first, I was like, WTF, like, okay, so she controls rats or whatever. What I liked about the movie was, in the way that The Boys does too, but does it over extended play, several hours, was it was over the top violence in this movie, but somehow you really kind of came to feel
Yeah.
something for Ratcatcher and Bloodsport, and a couple of the characters. And I really liked the way Amanda, was calling him a leader, and he's like, "I'm not a leader," blah 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 blah. And then there's that moment
Right.
in the movie where he becomes the leader. Like all the cookie crumbs dropped throughout the movie, he pulled it all together and got everyone to be able to do what they needed to do when they needed to do it. That was fun. John Cena was great. He's in the Fast and Furious movies, and of course he's a wrestler. But I read this funny interview with Joel Kinnaman. So he was the guy from Altered
Yeah.
Carbon. He is Rick Flag in this thing where he was talking about, these guys have to get really pumped up before these movies. And he
Mhm.
really was like, okay, I'm going to get yoked. And he was all proud of himself until he saw John Cena come in the door. He was like, oh, F me. And then he thought, okay, well, you know what? He's chunkier. I'm going to be able to move really,
Right.
really well and kind of, do all these action scenes and stand out that way. And then John Cena proceeds to do the splits. Oh, yeah. He said, I do this scene where I've got my shirt off, and 30 seconds later, John Cena's in the scene with just his underwear.
Yeah.
And he was like, forget it. I wanted to like show off my body, and he's completely upstaged me. I thought that was pretty funny.
Okay, but John Cena was in tighty whitey, so I'm not sure that was like the sexiest situation.
Yeah, no, I was weird, but didn't Kinnaman turn and say, "Why are you in your underwear?" or whatever? Like it was so out of place.
That's exactly right. Yeah, one of my favorite actors is Idris Elba, and when he came in as Bloodsport, I kept going back and forth because I couldn't remember in the first movie was it Deadshot or Bloodsport, and I think it was Deadshot. I don't think he's reprising the same character. I think this is a different one, right?
I believe you're right. Yes, I believe Will Smith played Deadshot, and this is Bloodsport. Yeah, I don't know anything about that character. I really love the rivalry and the way it all played out in the end between John Cena and him. The sort of one-upsmanship, and I liked what he
Yeah.
says. Nobody gives a. Or he goes, they do if it's super cool, and he turns and goes, damn it, he's right.
that, that was a great scene. There were so many great scenes, though. I mean, you talked about the one where John Cena comes out in his underwear, and that whole scene that was amazing. Where King Shark was about to eat Ratcatcher too, and it's like, what are you doing? You don't eat your friends. I don't have friends. I mean, they just did such a great job with the
Right,
dialogue and the play
right.
off each other.
Yeah, really, really great. And I'm impressed with Stallone. He wasn't in that suit. He wasn't on the set. He was delivering these lines probably months after they'd done production. You really believed that character. I think that was one of the most amazing motion capture characters I've seen in movies yet. Now, what's interesting, because, we're in a pandemic, I'd read that the movie did something like 4 million on the Thursday night previews, and that it's projected to earn 30 million domestically and 70 million worldwide. But then there was this article that you sent over about how it may not have done quite as well in the movie theaters this weekend because people aren't going to the movie theaters yet. I was so close to going to the movies to see it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have too if it wasn't on HBO. So I think it's a little more complicated than what they're saying. It being on HBO gave me
Yeah.
access to it, and anyways, so I think it was a couple
Yes.
things.
No, that's true.
But they only earned 26.5 million in the opening weekend. So for a big
Wow.
blockbuster like that, that's not too much. However, of course they did. stream on HBO, and a lot of people probably signed up for that, or at least retained their subscription for it. So there is a much larger number that this probably generated. Yeah, it's going to be difficult to measure this film or Black Widow and understand how the two play off each other, because they're
Yeah.
part streaming and then they're part not streaming. Now Disney did a little bit different, where just because you have Disney doesn't mean you get the movie. You actually had to pay still a little bit of extra in order to watch the movie on Disney Plus, but that wasn't the case
Right.
here. So we'll see.
At least Disney Plus will have a dollar figure directly attached to it. I'm sure this did help drive subscriptions to HBO Max.
Now, you and I have a love-hate relationship with Rotten Tomato. Sometimes we agree with them, sometimes we don't. But I'll tell you, one thing I found surprising about this is that the reviews by the professionals gave this movie a 91% on the tomato meter, which is pretty fresh, right?
Wow.
So that's a really good rating. And the audience score, with more than 1,000 people, actually agreed. They gave him an 84, which is pretty high for the
Yeah.
tomato meter. So it's kind of
Yeah.
cool to see that a lot of people really enjoyed this. And again, I think it's the chemistry. There's just amazing chemistry between the cast. Now, we mentioned Black Widow a minute ago. Have you seen all the hubbub that's been going on about that?
Well, about the lawsuit, the economics of these things change dramatically. These actors get a percentage of literally box office. So it's not just how well it does or how much money is made. It's specifically how well it performs in the Cineplex, where they're getting a
Yeah.
big chunk of their payday. So that's a tough one. I haven't read a huge amount of details. Basically, it sounded like the same story as what happened with Wonder Woman 1984 with director Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot. But it sounded like Disney's response to it was throwing its weight around.
Yeah, I'm sure that everybody's being played up as a villain, and
Yeah.
so I take some of that with a grain of salt. But at the end of the day, they did have a contract with Scarlett Johansson for a theatrical only production of this, and obviously things got forced to go in a different way. And while other studios renegotiated with their actors and actresses, Disney chose not to, and they released the movie,
Yeah.
and left the same contract in place. And I'm sure in the end they'll make her whole, but it's kind of a weird one that they didn't choose to renegotiate the contract ahead of time like other studios have. So I
Yeah.
I, I think in this case, I think she's probably in the right. It's kind of silly that she didn't. I mean, they didn't try and negotiate with her ahead of time to change the terms, considering they had changed the terms and how they were going to distribute the film. We'll
Yeah, it
see.
seemed like an unforced error. Even a gesture to her would have
Yeah,
been,
exactly.
I think in the court of public opinion, I think people are going to fall on her side. And it's Disney, and now they're so powerful. They did it because they can, but it doesn't leave a good taste in people's mouth.